Hi everyone. Can everyone hear me and see my screen?
Yeah, can.
Okay. Uh, I think we'll start first. I think there'll be a couple of people are late, but I think we'll start. Hi everyone. I'm Yushen. I'm an actuary here at Actomate. Today's webinar presentation here is going to be our the lessons that we learned from the year one implementation. So currently, I think our team here has had experience with those implementation work, and then actually it's year one reporting work that we have done for our clients. So we want to do this webinar here to share what we have gone through, and hopefully and then there are the people here, the people joining this, there are different stages of the IFRS 17 work. Some are still implementation. I mean, some haven't started implementation, some is in the midst of implementation, and some have already implemented and is working on day one thing. So the purpose of this webinar, hopefully you all can get some insights on what are the challenges faced by most people. And also at the end there, we'll try to recommend some solutions to address these issues. The, the reason for these issues and these challenges is I think because IFRS 17 is like a very complex and more uh, challenging reporting compared to the IFRS 4. So I think challenges are faced by I think everyone that's working on this. Right, we will start first. We'll go right into it. These are the main topics that we want to cover today. Mainly regarding first the data and the system, the people, documentation with and changing service providers, and also the IFRS 17 other specific issues related to IFRS 17. So the first issue is regarding data and system. Why this one is in under IFRS 17, the requirements for data and system uh is more stringent, is more heavier compared to the IFRS 4. And these are a few points that we notice when we do the work. The first one is this transition versus year one reporting. So during transition, uh, I think we can pass audit, or we can comply with the standard just by saying like if there's some data at the end, at the past that we don't have, we can just say that we're just going to use FVA approach. Basically, take the difference in the reserve and just have opening numbers for this. But moving forward with this IFRS 17 thing, we cannot afford to do this because we need to have the full, it's kind of like a full retro moving forward. You need to have the full data and project your cash flow and get the correct CSM starting and flowing. So this issue is generally less problematic for those businesses with short term because the the policies will expire, like let's say 2 years or 1 year, they will expire and then you just move on from there. But for those with like life insurance policies, 5, 10 years, or even 20 years policy, this is a problem because you need to keep track of the data and track it all the way until the end of the life of the policy. Next issue we face with this data and system issue we hear a lot is this problem with this dealing with different sources of data. So data can come from the operations, IT, and then the finance, and obviously the actuarial. All these four needs to be used. All the team in this four department need to use their data to flow into the financial statements. So, like one practical example we see when doing this is like if actual extracts data at policy level and finance extracts at the product level, this can affect the, like let's say the total premium that is that each department gets. And I know it sounds a bit like trivial here, but when it goes into the actual practical part, there could be issues. Next is then lastly, the last point I want to make here is with regards to the management's approach towards and management strategy towards this system and data thing. So I think we noticed there's two styles of management when they try to uh, push this IFRS 17 thing. They either look at it as a minimum requirement where they just try to leverage what the data and systems that they already have, and then they just try to get the results from there. So what ends up happening with this is there's a lot of manual work and uh, delayed timeline when it comes to year one implementation. And the other thing that we also notice is some people take this chance as just an opportunity to upgrade their system and just get everything right as part of this IFRS 17 implementation or year one reporting. Of course, when we do this, then the cost is high, and yeah, and that's a trade-off that the management is willing to take. Next is the people issue. So why is this important? Because if we have the correct system and the correct data in place, correct solution and data in place, correct system and solution in place, we still need the correct people to run it. So first thing is the correct mix of people. We need to have a correct mix of senior and junior members. The reason is because if we just employ senior members to the thing, probably the project can be successful, but it will be very costly. But if you only have junior, then our experience is they'll mostly just run around in circles because they cannot see the full picture. They need someone to guide them, more senior with experience to guide them. Then we move to the finance team, so we don't have a choice here. During IFRS 17, we need to interact with the finance team because of the extra numbers. So once again, we notice that seniority here doesn't necessarily imply the experience because this standard mostly is for um it's more actuarial based. So some of the thing the senior members in the finance might not get it. Then if they don't get it, they might run around in circles, and this one can delay the financial statement generation as well. Then lastly, IT. IT is important in this whole reporting because there's a lot of data that's required, then multiple system that needs to be maintained. And what's the issue that one of the issue we find here is the issue of the IT, like contractor-based IT members. They just feel that their job there is just to, when they will just not fix anything unless you tell them, then they will just fix that problem without thinking like, oh, what's the issue there? So what ends up happening is the finance and the actuarial team needs to keep doing the manual adjustment because the IT they're not sure what to do, or they're just waiting for you to tell them, and they won't, like, if there's any issue they won't go and proactively fix it. And last issue is with this when we want to have changes or during implementation, there's a lot of subjective things in the standards. Uh, what you need, what we need to do, I mean, what we find that is more effective when we do this is you need to get everyone from actuarial, finance, IT, and we introduce the audit here, external audit, to sit down at the table and just discuss what are the expectations for it. Because like one fine example is the audit can interpret one thing differently compared to the actuarial. So the actuarial shouldn't just go and start the work for you. They start the work and it comes to audit, it will be problematic. So to prevent us going round and round, it's better to sit down at the table and you get the things aligned first. Okay, and last thing, I think this one we put here because nearly every team member that we talk to says this documentation is a big thing. So a few points here about documentation. We want to have this end-to-end thing, and also don't just write down the thing for what it is. You need to understand the why. Or else when there are like changes to the logic of the thing, you don't know why you do this in the first place. Uh, then second point is with this key person. So normally in our experience is with the for our clients and what we observe is there will be one individual or a few individuals with a lot of knowledge of the whole process, but not everyone is aware of how the knowledge of this person. So what we need to do here is we always have to, I think the second point, you always have to go with the assumption that they cannot be reached. So you need to always write down the things and assume that the key person cannot be reached. Then then lastly, if you this problem also very important when you decide that you want to change vendors or people, external people that do your work. It's better you own the logic yourself, like rather than just depending on the outside vendors. Then lastly, this might be repeated later. This right from the mindset, right from the start mindset, when you do your implementation, you need to try to document the things as you go and try to get it right there. Because when you go to the IFRS 17, the year one reporting there, if you don't do this, there will usually be not much time to catch up, or you need to get extra resources to do this. Because you need to report monthly or quarterly like this, and there's no time to do this documentation. Then lastly, obviously, this documentation needs to be done across the departments, not just actuarial, because it will affect the whole thing if your finance or IT don't get things right. Then one more important thing that we notice in this whole thing is this service provider thing. I think speaking from experience, we are more experienced with this actuarial changing service provider for the actuarial work. It's normal. We have seen this happen quite a bit. And the reason can range from one reason can be the management think they can find a better deal in the market. It can also be because we have another clients like they, every 3, 4 years like this, they need to change vendors. Or the worst one is the vendors are just not delivering, so they no choice have to change. So what we experience, what we need to check when we do this, what we recommend to check is the past experience. So this past experience maybe in Malaysia and Singapore a bit harder because we are the first countries here in Southeast Asia to implement this standard. But for those countries that haven't started, like it's better you see whether the company has like any implementation or reporting experience. Then specific knowledge of the company, and lastly, the one more important thing is the profile of the team members handling the project, and their experience in this whole reporting. And when we select a service provider, it's important to know that we try, like it's usually is actually I would say it's not possible to have just one solution for the company to just work. It's better that like we all go and find those, they have a solution, but then they tailor make the solution to the company. And lastly, the most important one is what happens if you don't do this properly. We have seen, I think, quite a few companies like the service provider cannot deliver. Then what ends up happening is they just have to just abandon it and then try and get the internal people to suddenly take over the task. This is very costly and very demotivating to the internal team also. Then one more last point is when you change a service provider, if you change it during implementation, is one of the most problematic thing compared to post-implementation year one, because at least when you set up everything in the implementation stage, you have your technical accounting paper, you have those workings and systems set up in place. So when you change, it's not that bad. But if you change during implementation, yeah, it can mean that the new service provider need to redo the whole thing. So that's very painful. Okay, lastly, we go to this, last two, we go to this other specific issues that because this more complex financial reporting, there are other these specific issues that we have to go through. The first one is the explaining one line items. For example, we have this example here, insurance revenue. You need to explain not only to the management, you need to explain to the other teams that why we come up with these numbers, shareholders, that kind. First one is insurance revenue. You look at the thing, you will need to explain what makes it up, this PCF, RACSM, and then acquisition cash flow recovery. And it's not just this, like those of you have done this quite a few times. I think you will notice one more thing that we haven't include like the thematic allocation of the loss component also needs to go here. And if you one more thing you need to explain that is like very not intuitive is this acquisition cash flow will be part of your service expense also. So it's not easy to explain this kind of thing to the non-actual people. Then second thing is with this uh, explaining the gap to management. So what we generally notice is the management is they are comfortable with the I4 standard, how the number goes and all this. But when you want to explain the IFRS 17, you need quite a lot of bridging and slowly explain to them. But this is expected to change in the future as time goes on when this thing becomes more common. But currently, we don't see that's the case yet. And one more thing with this reporting is this timeline thing. So we notice there are companies, most companies want the result to be out in like 5 days after the month end. So why this is challenging is because we need to wait. We need to wait for the regular reporting to finish our work, wait for finance to get their numbers out, then gather everything and then put into the financial statement solution that the generator. Then only we can get final result. So if there's any delay along the steps or there's any reruns, normally we need to go through this whole process again, and usually not easy to. It's a lot of work to get it out by 5 days or 1 week after the month end. And ultimately, that's the goal because the reason we want to get the result out is so that management can they can make decisions on time. Like we don't want to report the thing 1 month later, then management look at it and like, what can I do with the result already past 1 month or 2 months at this? Then lastly, another thing is with this audit. So another issue that we always face is like the auditors. It's hard to get the auditors to understand the assumption used in like the different reporting. Like maybe if I for I-17 have some difference in working or assumption. Lastly, want to just touch on this implementation thing, like why it's important and what's the problem if we don't do it properly. The whole thing about this implementation that we notice is planning. So planning is very important here. If you plan correctly, get the correct resources, have the correct data system, hire the correct solution, you most probably will be successful here. But what happens if you don't? If you don't, the problem is keep this will become like a permanent problem. Right? Every reporting cycle, you will have manual adjustment you need to make, then reruns after reruns because the implementation is not done right, the foundation is not done right. Then the ultimate problem with this is you get your delayed result to the management before they make the decision. So that's not so this is a major problem that we want to try to avoid if you haven't started implementation. Okay, I think that's all the points. We'll just quickly go through some solutions here. Solutions are closely linked to the issues that we highlight just now. Also, these solutions are like just our recommendations that we see. Obviously, we understand that it's not possible to implement all solutions, that it might be too costly or there might be not enough resources to do it. We start with the data and systems solution. What you want to do is generally have like a single source of the data. So why this is important is because so that all the departments will not be confused. They always get reconciled data and they don't have to go through a lot of work to reconcile the data. They can just proceed with the data that's available out of the system. Then we also want to try to, as much as possible, eliminate these manual workarounds and just creating new columns, this kind of thing. We want to do it in the system itself. Lastly, I think we once in a while the company needs to have this discussion on um, whether they want to implement the one-off cost to reduce this kind of thing or continue doing the managers. And this needs to be discussed like periodically. For the people, I think the first part is to have training for those, especially people that are not in actuarial, to understand what this whole standard is about. And also, instead of working individually, we need to think about how they can work in groups where the finance and IT and actuarial work together. Then, if possible, for this IT part here, we want to try to, for this project especially, don't just think of the IT as some contractor and they just here to complete their work and go home. You need to try to think of them like how they can contribute to the overall data and system maintenance at this for these IT people. Lastly, uh, we want to organize the structure in terms of the roles that they play. The senior staff should probably work on reviewing and trying to pass on the big picture to the rest of the staff. The junior staff should be on execution, and the middle people act as the translator between the senior and the more junior people. Documentation here, we want when we apply when we do any workings to this thing, we want to be the logic should be transparent and make sense to all parties. Don't have a thing that only one department understand or one person understand. Then lastly, we need to always keep in mind this key person risk. Right, we need to imagine what happens when the person is not there. So documentation and always like having a handover is very important. Lastly, the other solutions, the other issues. First one is this management. Uh, we want to have some storytelling from IFRS 4 to IFRS 17 so that the management can understand, like, for example, finance impact from the IFRS 4, how does it go into the IFRS 17 like this? And also to help them with the KPI and KPI management, we should have some dashboard where it's more simple for the management to understand, like CSM release, this kind of thing, so that they don't have to go through the whole financial statement to understand what to do. Timeline optimization, this one we want to try to work, if possible, identify tasks that can be done concurrently rather than sequentially. And early warning signs, this is very important so that we don't try to have a system where we don't have to keep doing reruns and reruns. We want to try and, as much as possible, get in the the run in one shot or less reruns, because every rerun usually will involve all parties from finance to IT to actual. And one more thing, last thing we think will help a lot is we have a single committee or bunch of people that decides what kind of assumption to be used in IFRS 4 and 17. And obviously, we want to also involve the audit in this process because a lot of our pain points and a lot of redo of the work is around this audit. Okay, I think that's all for the points that we want to bring up this thing. Open the questions. I'll open the floor to the question and answer.
However, I think you can unmute yourself or type in the chat box if you have any question.
Hello, Yusheng.
Yes.
Paradila from NKS. I just have some question on the proposed solution that you shared just now. Do you have like more detail or working or template that you can share with us so we can immediately adopt the solution if we haven't adopt?
Sure. I think this, like I said just now, these solutions are just recommendations, and if you want like a proper solution to a problem that you are currently facing, we are more than happy to help. Like a specific problem that you have.
Okay, all right.
Hi, Yushen.
Hi.
May I ask a question about the IT? Just now you mentioned there are two kind of attitude. One is like a consultant. One is like to understand the root cause and try to fix that. May I know, in your opinion, how can we encourage IT to actually look into the root cause instead of like a consultant and just fixing around the issue lah.
I think this one is more to do with like the people skill. So we want to try and get the IT people to understand that they play an important role in this reporting thing. Then they need to see that I think one way is to let them see like if they do wrong, then like what the actuarial and the finance team got to do every month. Like once they do something wrong, then the finance and actuarial team every month they just go and make the manual adjustment. And yeah, so we don't want to just exclude them from the whole process. I think that's usually the case. That leads to this kind of problem.
Okay, thank you.
If there's no more question, I pass to you, Raymond.
Yeah. Thank you, Jason, for the seminar. And thank you for everyone that joining our seminar today. If there is no more question, I think we can conclude the call. And after this call, we will share a feedback form. So we will appreciate any feedback or comment from everyone so that we may improve our webinar going forward lah. So yeah, thank you and have a good day, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, thank you.